to the next episode of the Single Girl's Guide to Life. I'm Chantel the Coach, a quarter life and confidence coach, and I host the Single Girl's Guide to Life, a weekly podcast to help you through your single life. Whether you're looking to date or not, it's a place for you to learn about how to embrace your single life, to develop in the personal areas of your life, to make friendships, to find other single people to hang out with, and realize that being single isn't the be all and end all, and that there is so much you can do with that life, even being single. Now, in this week's episode, I want to continue on from last week's episode. So if you haven't checked that out yet, then I advise that you have a little listen to that and even the one before, because we're starting to look at 2022. And whilst you can listen to this podcast in any order and it will stand alone, some of the last two episodes will be useful in terms of thinking about 2022 and adopting the mindset for 2022. Now, this week, I want to talk about making the New Year's resolutions and keeping them. Now, if you've listened to those previous episodes, you'll know that New Year isn't the be all and end all of making a New Year resolution and making change. You can make change in your life whenever. It's just that New Year has that vibe about it because it's new. It is a clearly marked point in the year where we get to sit down, reflect, and start afresh. And obviously sometimes the expectation on that can be quite high. And the problem is that we don't always carry out our New Year's resolutions very well. And the last two episodes, particularly 2 episodes ago, where I started to encourage you to think about how you were going to make 2022 the year of you, to start thinking about what it was that you wanted to achieve, what it was that you wanted to focus on next year. And I know I've been thinking about that as a result of doing that 2 weeks ago. I'm also can't wait to use the book 2022 the year of you, the journal that I put together, and I have my copy ready to fill in. Like, I'm eager to fill it in now that I'm starting to really think about it. But we're only in the beginning of December here, so we can't go full steam ahead quite, but we can start making all those plans and getting everything into place to make the start of 2022 as successful as possible. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk about 3 ways that you can start to make habits instead of just focusing on the resolutions. You're actually going to develop behavior change so that you can achieve success in whatever it is that you're looking to develop in, improve on, and work on. Because a habit is something that we form, and on average it takes about 66 days, but it can take from anything down to a couple of weeks up to over a year to really establish a habit. And a habit is something that you do without thinking about it. Now, New Year's resolutions and the action we take initially aren't that. They are not habits. Often, a New Year's resolution is a statement about something you are going to do. And that's where it ends. You're there, you're saying that, and maybe if we take the very obvious one that lots of people go for at New Year, which is to lose weight in some way or improve fitness, and they sign up to a gym. The gyms know that that's a busy time for them. They also know the retention isn't there. And so, whilst we've made that intention, we did something that worked towards that, there wasn't anything in the background supporting that. There wasn't anything that said, how am I actually going to do this? Yes, I've signed up to a gym, I'm paying that. How am I actually going to fit that in my schedule and do it and make it something that I do automatically, that is built in, that is a routine? And that's where we want to get with a habit. A habit is there to facilitate the change you're looking for. So you can make any statement you like for New Year's, but if you don't then have the plan behind it, if you don't have the mindset, which is what I spoke about last week, the mindset applies to everything, but in particular this new year, a growth mindset's really interesting because you start to dream about what it is that you want and you don't let your fixed mindset hold you back from what you're thinking you want to improve on. But this week we're going to focus in on the habits you can start to look at in order to start achieving that from the minute get-go in 2022. We're not going to start researching it then and deciding then what we're doing because that's too late, and the chances are we're going to have fluffed up on the first week of 2022, which does not put us in good stead for the rest of the year. Now, part of it will be involved within the Single Girls Club. I'll mention a little bit later on as to how you can get involved directly with that and the elements, and I'll mark it for you. But what I want to do today is just look at those habits. So, in terms of habits, it's a case of practice and building it up. You have to not only commit to what it is that you're trying to envision and see for your life, but as well as that, you have to then take the action that goes with it. So we'll go back to the gym scenario. You can't just do the sign up and you can't just pay the money. In order to have an impact on your health and improve the things that you're trying to look at improving, you need to show up consistently. You need to be able to do that sustained over time. You need to be able to make sure you're turning up, and it will depend how many times you want to do it each week based on how much you want to improve on your fitness. Is it how fast you want to complete something? Is it how much weight you want to lose, as I mentioned before? And depending on the goal and depending on what you're actually trying to achieve and the actions you take towards that, sometimes going more often will have a quicker impact, because if you go every single day, then obviously you're improving your fitness and burning more energy every single day. However, that might not be feasible, and you might be like, well, I can only go twice a week. And then that's when your kind of SMART goals, which I've spoken about on here before, your SMART goal time element changes, because if you can only go 2 weeks, you're going to have a different result to the person that can go 5 times a week. So it's all down to you in that sense. But you have to make the decision about what action it is that you're really going to take, because signing up to the gym is not the action. It's not. So I personally am looking at some of my health areas again. So I had an operation over summer. It was major surgery, and therefore my fitness went out a little bit. I got back on track with running because I am a bit of a runner. I'm not a keen runner, as it were, but running is one of the chosen exercise forms that I will happily do and go through. And then over summer, I actually put myself in for a half marathon, and I know I documented that on Instagram a little bit with some of the training and actually doing it. But within that, I actually sustained an injury, and that was, I think, early October, middle of October. I haven't run since then because of the injury. I used to love a HIIT workout, and that's kind of gone out the window a little bit, and I've lost my love for that. And I did try and get back into it. I just couldn't build the routine up. It was so frustrating. Back when the first lockdown happened and before, I used to do HIIT workouts every morning before work. I did it throughout the lockdown. It was something that kept me sane and gave me the routine. And somewhere along the line, I lost that. That's not, that's by the by, not a problem. I've now got running. But when I had the injury, I couldn't run and I couldn't get back into the other one. So the half marathon kept me going there. There was a goal and I knew I wanted to do it. Now with the injury, I want to get back to that. I want to get my fitness back up, and I also want to look at my diet a little bit. I know that my sugar intake's pretty high, so this is something that I know I'm looking at for 2022. And I've started to think, okay, what can I do about that? I need to start thinking about how I reintroduce exercise and how I sort of get rid of sugary items within what I eat and drink. Now, when I was thinking about this and through all the things and the different things I've read, instantly, my top favourite book, which is the one that we are reading for our December read, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's such a powerful book for habits, building them, behaviour change, breaking bad habits and building new ones that serve you better. And I won't delve into all of that because the book itself has so much that you can take so much from and get that information from. But there is one section that always sticks out to me that I always remember, and that is the 4 habits, the 4 laws of habit change, which is make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. Again, I won't go into detail on all of that, but make it obvious, something that you're reminded of, make it attractive. It's got to be something that you want to do. It's not because someone else wants you to do it. Make it easy. You've got to remove the barriers, make it satisfying. Give yourself a reward at the end of each time you do it that doesn't counteract the work you've done, preferably. But within that as well, it was then starting to think about how I could build it up and also how you can build up yours. We can't just go straight in, and you have to start thinking of those elements as to, okay, well, I need to work out my motivation. I need to work out why I'm doing these things. What is it for? Who's it for? Is it for me inherently? It has to be really to keep that motivation going. And then it was also the practical elements. And obviously in those 4 laws, there are some practical elements to habit change, making it obvious, such as, as simple as putting a post-it note up. Now, some of those things I've tried and some of those things I haven't, but I have a few things that I want to share with you, these 3 ways to get you started with thinking about your habits. Now, before you do the 3 things, you do have to think about your habit. I've already said it a few times. You need to know what it is you want to achieve and then how you're going to do that. Not the actual, I want to do that. Well, what's that going to take? Break that down into smaller steps that are actionable, that you can do something with. That's the kind of key part to begin with. And within that, the first step of habit change, therefore, is to write it down. Within the Year Review 2022 book, there's a whole section to write down goals and evaluate what it is that you're trying to do. On this page is January. Every single month, we're going through what one thing are you going to start doing? What one thing are you going to stop doing? What one thing must you finish, do, or achieve this month? And whilst those are different to the habit building questions that you might consider, it's the element of if you write something down, you're more likely to achieve it because you've put it on paper. Rather than it just being something you've said, there's an element of the fact that you've written it down and you're committing to it in some way. Now, obviously, if you pay no attention to what you've written down and don't come back to it, it's not helpful. Hence why a scrappy piece of paper is no good, but a journal or something that you can keep track of it in is useful. Writing it down and seeing it in front of you. And you start with your goal and then work backwards into the smaller steps that it is that you want to work on. So my arguably could be improve my fitness levels, my health and fitness. And 2 of the actions that I'm going to be working on and 2 of the habits I want to build is increasing the amount of exercise I do and reducing the amount of sugary drinks I drink. That is literally the one that I'm focusing on first because I love a Pepsi. Yep, I think Pepsi's better than Coca-Cola. Just an opinion. I used to be the other way. But I also know how much sugar's in those drinks. And it's important to me to focus on that. It's not my only focus. I have a couple of other areas. Communication as a general skill is another one for 2022. But I'm realistically saving that for the book. Whereas these ones, interestingly, and that I want to share with you is that I'm starting now. I am not leaving the health resolution until New Year. Because we're in a new month right this second. And whilst you might be a day behind because of when the podcast comes out, it's that element of the fact that you could start making this change whenever. And I want to, and hope you do too, I want to hit the ground running for 2022. I don't want to be thinking about this. I want to have some things in place where I'm like, okay, I'm working on this New Year's resolution and sticking with it. So in order to do that, I've got it written down and I've really thought about what it is I want to do. But that's not going to be enough. So after the first thing of writing it down, the second thing is to develop a way of seeing some progress, of actually monitoring how you're doing with that. Now, in my 2 instances, I decided on the frequency of how I was going to do this. So with running, I'm at a 0 at the moment. So my running initially, I want to start for the next month before we get to 2022. I want to be in the habit of going once a week running. That's not a lot, but it's more than I currently do. You can't even work out the percentage because you're at 0. You won't be able to work out the percentage increase. Not possible. And so doing that is really important. And I keep myself accountable to a degree by monitoring it on my Fitbit watch, making sure it tracks that. Telling someone about it is always good. But the other thing that you can do is use a habit tracker. I have found habit tracking to be the most powerful and effective thing for me in terms of making sure I get a goal done. I used to have a habit tracker, and I continued it throughout lockdown, with about 10 things on it, because at some point they weren't new habits. I had a habit, I was crossing it off and learning how to get crosses every day, essentially. And then I would introduce another habit, and that would be, very empty. There'd be quite a lot of circles because I didn't do the thing I was meant to do. But over time, I increased the X's that I had for I've done it. And I built up these things of going to bed by 9:30, I think it was, putting the phone away by 8 o'clock, getting up and doing the exercise, not having drinks. I've done these things before. I'm reintroducing them and I'm bringing them back in the way I best know how. Now, a habit tracker, you can find them online. You can develop your own in a gridded book, a bit like bullet journaling. Or if you make sure that you are on the subscription list, the email subscription list for Chantel the Coach, then you should have already received the email to that. Otherwise, you can catch it in the Single Girls Club. I'll be posting it there a little bit later on, but the first early bird people to get it are the people on the email list and should already have it, where there's one set up for you for December already. So again, if you're hearing this on the podcast, you might be a couple of days behind, you might even be a couple of weeks behind by the time you hear it. But you can develop a habit tracker, and this one is focused in on December and starting to lay the foundation. Now, this ties in with the element of make it satisfying, because there's a reward. Seeing it and crossing it off is a lovely feeling. And I'm a mathematician in the background, so therefore I like to then look at the analysis of which one was I most successful in within a week, and also looked at like week on week what the average number of crosses was to see if my average was going up. Like, even if I had a really rock bottom day where it just all went out the window, had I overall improved for the week despite that kind of blip that might have sort of caught me out there. So that's step number 2, is developing a system where you can see your progress. Now, depending on your goal, some apps have things where you can like check the day off. You might even get reminders for things. But a habit tracker for me was useful. And it's important to note at this point that not everything that worked for me is going to work for you. But I got that idea from the book. I used it. I tried it out. And I really loved it. I liked knowing it and seeing it. And doing it by hand was really important to me. As I mentioned, there are apps, there are tracking devices, something about the nature of like at the end of the day, crossing it off. I used to do it in the morning and the evening because I had some morning things, then some evening things. And it was just that with a pen, crossing it off and knowing that I'd done it. I felt like I'd achieved it. And it might have been the smallest thing, like put your phone away at 8. And that was making all the difference at the time. And you just feel that. You feel that a little bit more because you can see it. You feel quite proud of it. And I know I've probably got them somewhere. I've got the books hidden away, tucked away from old journals because they just used to go at the back. So it was something like that made it possible. Now for number 3, the other thing to do with your goal is it's nice to share it with someone. Because for a number of reasons. One is that someone can then ask you about it. They can say, how's that going? And you can keep sharing it with them. Now that works best if they too are doing the same goal or a similar goal. So for a fitness goal, for example, you can be cheering them on the days where they don't want to get up and do their strength training by getting the weights out. And they too can say to me, oh, have you gone for your run this week? And so on. It's the element of the fact that you can help each other out on quite a similar level of whatever it is that you're working on. Alternatively, you just tell someone that is part of your life interested and willing to help and support you as you move through. And so they might have very little interest or in doing it themselves, but they have an interest in you, and you could just say to them, would you mind talking to me or reminding me about the fact that I should be running, or just check in, or when I do it, do you mind if I send you a picture? I've never asked my friends outright for this, but some of them just get pictures of me running. But that can often come about because we've spoken about running, and I know they've got a background in running, or they too have at one point been looking to run a bit more and shared it. So it just depends. The other thing, though, that I want to encourage for people in December to start paving the way for 2022, and with this habit tracker, is to share some of it in the Single Girls Club, because the Single Girls Club is there to support single women and create that community of single women together, or those that at least encourage singleness, because people's statuses are going to change. I'm not going to keep checking in on you if you're still single, but the idea is that you encourage and embrace the fact that some people are choosing single or are single, and that is just as valid a choice as not being single anymore. And so the idea of sharing that in the Single Girls Club and looking to develop a way of just cheering each other on, seeing the crosses on the sheet and sharing that habit tracker in there can be something as well. Because that group, in theory, could have everything. My plan is to put a post out there and say, what are you going to work on for December? And how's your habit tracker going? And how's this going? And that kind of paves the way for 2022, because if you get the book, it's got an accountability group link that you'll be able to then track throughout 2022. Not quite as intensely, but it just has that little element of checking in and seeing if you are doing what you're meant to be doing and reflecting. Accountability isn't all about getting it done and saying, I've done it. It's the idea that if you have an accountability partner or group, that you also spend the time assessing what went well and what could be improved. So what went well this week with my running is that I got out there and ran. It was a very tentative run. I haven't run since that half marathon, since that injury. So I had to be careful, and I didn't want to push myself too far to cause injury straight away. So I ran just under 2 miles and it was 20 minutes. That's not a great run for me. 10-minute miles and under that at that matter, not really me. More like 9, but it's fine. It's the first one back after an injury. I have to do that. I could have probably gone longer, but I didn't want to risk it. There is an element of pacing because my biggest goal is to do a marathon in my 30th year, so between 29 and 30. So this is what this all undercurrents. There is one really, really big goal that I've only just mentioned in the 20 minutes that I've been talking about this. That's realistically what I'm working on as a really, really big thing. Right now, I've just got to get back to running. In terms of the drinks, that's only started the last couple of days to try and play with it. I know at one point I went for about 6 weeks without a Pepsi, or if I did, it was 1 or 2 in there. But I felt like there was a 6-week kind of block where maybe I let myself have 1 a week, and that was a kind of allowance. I can't do that at the moment. I'm having 1 can of Pepsi probably a day, if not one of the 500ml bottles. No. And so this week, or the last few days, I've decided I'm going to go on, off. That seems reasonable. It seems achievable. It doesn't seem like I'm saying no to it entirely yet. That's what I'd like to work towards, and not have any fizzy drinks and try and find that alternative for that. And so it's worked okay. I really, really want one now, even though my day was yesterday and my day will be tomorrow to have one. So it's going to be working out, okay, what can I do here? Why am I craving it? There's also another inquiry to go down. And it's all those things of, so if you're trying to get back into the gym, what's the blockage stopping you? And there'll always be something. If you're trying, even running, it was freezing cold when I ran yesterday. I'm currently recording this on the Sunday. So when I did this, it was the freezing cold Saturday where a lot of people had snow. I didn't have snow, but it felt as cold as it could be for snow. And it's easy to go, it's too cold. It was raining a bit as well. So, it's raining, my hair. You have to think about things. So I purposefully made sure that my run was followed by a shower so that the hair situation was a problem. At one point, I even contemplated and said, I don't know if I want to go for a run today. I'll go tomorrow. But then straight away I was like, if I do that, then I can't wash my hair. And I really want to wash my hair before Sunday so it's ready for this, so I can do this. And it suddenly made my life so much more difficult to move in. I was like, all right, I'm going to have to run. I have no choice. And you want to be able to almost give yourself no choice with everything all the time. Put in your shoes. My shoes are always at the door. I know my stuff. There's always enough sports gear. There's no excuse for there not to be enough shorts, enough sports bras, enough tops. You've got to work out those things. And that's what the accountability partners and groups are there for. It's not just to cheer along. That's one element. But there's the element of, what did I do that worked? How's it going? And what's the reflection on how I could improve things? So there's no improvements at the moment. There's just more reflections of, I can see these barriers coming up. I can see these mental blockages and the kind of trying to take the trying to take the path of least resistance, because of course we're wired that way probably, to do it the easiest way possible and avoid the hard work where we have to. But it's very, very useful to have that element. So those are the 3 things that we're talking about. Get it written down, see it, put it on paper and commit to it. Then get a habit tracker where you can see it happening and developing as you go through. You get that satisfaction of crossing it off. And then the other bit is have people there to support you and to help you and to reflect on how it's all going with you. Because you want to be part of the 8% that are successful with their New Year's resolutions after the first month. A lot of New Year's resolutions, 80%, don't last past the second week of February, so 6 weeks. You've got to sustain this for more than 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks in order to really be achieving it. It's not easy. And so having this run up in December means that you're starting to pave the way so that you're going to be one of those people. You're going to be one of the 8%. You're going to be one of those people that gets to March. Maybe you'll even get further to June, July, August, and these things will become habits. You won't be thinking about it anymore. I won't think about, I really, really fancy a Coca-Cola. Or a Pepsi. Like, I'll still have them from time to time. I'm on, off, and then at some point I'll be going off, off, on, off, off, on. I'll develop it, but I won't have such an automatic habit at the moment, which is what I do for grabbing a Coca-Cola. Like, I've already done the one where it's, don't, like, do the opposite of making it obvious, so hide it. There's no Pepsi in the fridge, but unfortunately, I can find some if I want. I can get myself to a shop. So it's, managing the resistance of that to break a habit. This one's been a bit more focused on building a new habit. With the running, I just want to make it part of my routine that every single week I run. And I'll probably end up running more in the end and doing it twice a week, maybe 3, or twice running, 1 HIIT workout, something like that. But for now, just focusing on once a week and finding where it fits best. For now, Saturday morning makes sense, can wash my hair for the rest of the weekend. Until something comes up on a Saturday morning, it becomes difficult. Life is challenging. But having that habit tracker, putting the planning in, having people to do it with, is all part of it. And so getting ready to make 2022 the year of you, applying that mindset from last week's episode, and now starting to really think about how to do it. This in itself is a little mini series on getting ready for 2022. And as single women, we don't have that person that's going to be there every single day necessarily to cheer us on or to do it with us. That is sometimes the beauty of a relationship, is you've always got that one person there. And when you're single, unless you've got a friend that's like that, a very good best friend, then you have to kind of think about things in a different way. And it might be that you have to go to multiple different people for different things. And that's why that community of single life, you don't want to get demotivated by the fact that it doesn't feel like you have the people to talk to. You want to be remembering that you can keep going. And I also have a feeling that some people's New Year's resolutions will be focusing on dating, maybe. Dating's one of the hardest ones. I don't know what resolution you'd go for. Maybe you're going to convince yourself you're not going to go for the same people. Quite a difficult one to do because you don't always know everyone. Or it might just be that you want to get back into dating and you're going to say, well, I'm going to go on 1 date every 2 weeks, or 1 date a month to start with for some of you, and some of you are going to go into 1 date a week or something. It's a resilience exercise going on dates because you don't know what's going to happen. It's so uncertain. It really, really picks up on any kind of anxiety or insecurities that you have within yourself. That's tough. And so you need that network, and you want to see that success that you're building because you're giving yourself the opportunities to find someone if that's what you're looking to do in 2022. So I hope that you've had a little think about your habits and how you're going to actually build them to a point at which it's not just a New Year's resolution. This is something you're going to change in your life that's going to stick. Mine didn't stick forever because I didn't keep them up. But I know I can access it to get back in, and I know how I can build it up when I need to. So have a little think about what it is and how to break it down. Start writing it down. Make sure you're on the email list for the habit tracker. If not, find your own, or see you in the Single Girls Club. And in there, that's where you'll get some of the accountability as well, because I'm going to be talking about what I'm doing, crossing it off, sharing it, and hopefully some other people will be then there doing it too. And if not, you need to be the person to post it in and get yourself with that accountability going forwards. I hope you have a brilliant week, and until next time, keep thriving.